Hey everybody, if you're joining me tonight, this is the Girls Peer Leadership webinar. I wanted to talk with some of you fantastic people about the reason why I'm super passionate about girls peer-to-peer teaching, learning, mentoring, all that stuff. So we're going to get started in just about 3 minutes, it looks like. And because I want to really reward those of you who have come on time or even a little bit early, I want to start the broadcast off tonight with a couple of embarrassing pictures of me. I thought that would be, I don't know, maybe it'll be my new thing. I really hate them, and they are in, like, there's an abundance in this office where I am broadcasting from. So the first one is the least embarrassing of them all. This is a picture of me and my darling brother. Can you see that? Yes, you can see that. Taking some pictures outside the Guy house around Christmas time. Let's see if there's a date on this. Nope, no date, but let's just say I think I was a senior in high school, so it'd be 98 or 99. This is from a similar time period. My mother loves this picture. She took it. She forced me to go out in the field behind their house and do this fancy pants photo shoot, and I was really upset about it, but I did it to make her happy, and then I had to see the pictures for the rest of my life, so I regret that. Here's one of them. There's me kind of freezing my booty off. Okay, and this one's good. This one proves that I was a crazy cat lady in the making, even as a youngster. So I think this is probably when I was 11 or 12. Check this out. There I am with a cat on my lap, Polly, and then 1, 2, 3 other cats lined up on my bed. I am paler than I am now, if that was even possible. But that was, so those are your treats for coming early or on time. Those are my insane pictures. I will probably do that every webinar. So it's just about that time, 6 o'clock now, so I want to get started, and I want to, I don't know if anybody on here is new to this webinar thing or what, but there should be a little square bubble that's like a little talk tag for Q&A. So if you have questions during the presentation, I'll probably just check those at the end, but you can click on the Q&A and you should be able to load up a question in there for me. And there might even be an applause button or another way you can send me feedback. I can't see the same screen you can, but okay, so let's just get into tonight's agenda right after a word of prayer. Father in heaven, thanks for being here before us, for caring about young women and how to reach them and how to teach them and mentor them. I just ask that you bless this time together, that you make it fruitful, that you have all these brains together who are watching or who will be watching, thinking of awesome things and awesome ways to reach the young women in our lives. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. Okay, so obviously the topic tonight is peer leadership or mentorship, or even peer teaching if you want to call it that. But I want to start again by introducing myself. I'm Amy Register, president of Greater Than Rubies, and my purpose is to create experiences and resources that help young women live their absolute best lives possible for Christ, and thus the webinar. So I was born in Berrien Springs, Michigan, and I grew up in Southern California and Utah, and then we moved to Arkansas when I was young. But while we lived in Utah, I really got that firsthand experience, that taste of being an outsider, a religious outsider nonetheless. And that made me start thinking of how to connect with my own people, how to get the support I needed. I now live in Central Arkansas. It was about 2 years ago that I went to Arise Evangelism School in Australia, and I started having these thoughts about needing to be on the forefront, on the actual battle lines, walking side by side with the young women of God, and thinking that maybe I should do something more active to reach and teach and help them with their issues. So that's how Greater Than Rubies was born, and that's what we're doing here tonight. So I want to talk specifically about something that's been on my mind and my heart for the last couple months, I guess, 3 or 4 months. But I got a desire to talk about peer mentorship or peer leadership when I was reading a book called Tripping the Prom Queen. And you are welcome to check it out. I can't remember the author right now, but she talked about how women are in rivalry even to a greater extent than men, but it's more harmful to us because we don't usually admit it. We like to think that we're helpful and nurturing, and so maybe that's happened in your own life. I know it's happened in mine, where I was expected on the outside to be sweet and helpful, but on the inside I was really competing with somebody. And I know that it's even more disastrous when it's close to home. There are mothers and daughters competing. There are sisters and sister-in-laws competing. And I say this because sometimes I feel like I'm in competition for my brother's time and attention, even though I know that primarily belongs to his wife. I just feel like there's not enough resources. So we're taught from an early age to compete with one another. There's jealousy and envy, and sometimes competition is healthy, but sometimes it's really not. So I read this book, Tripping the Prom Queen, and it brought all these ideas to light, and I thought that I want to be a part of the change. I want to be a champion of other women, of young women especially, and I know you do too, and that's why you're watching. So I think this is an opportunity for us to find something real, something that either church can provide, or your small group can provide, or you personally can go out on your own and provide, is that nurturing friendship between women that we desperately need. And so that's kind of the kickoff and the reason for all of this. We need to communicate the message in a different medium. So a lot of people might be thinking like, hey, that's what church itself is for, to comfort and champion these women, these young women. But guess what? I don't know how to say this, but it doesn't happen in church. Maybe it's just me. Comment and let me know if I'm totally messed up in the head, but it's like we go to church, we do those programs, and then we get out and maybe we don't even see each other very much, especially the young people during the week. So I think there's a need to communicate Christian values and this women helping women mentality outside of church. And that's why I want to introduce these girls' peer leadership or mentorship groups. So the good news is that there is a Barna poll. I think it was out like way back in 2011. But the Barna poll said that adults are really important. So if you're an adult, which I suppose is just past 18, and you're watching this, you're absolutely important in the mentorship of young people. And this is the first factor that will keep young people going to church and feeling fulfilled by church, as if you as an adult are mentoring these young people. So there is a significant difference, this poll said, between people who stayed in church past high school and people who didn't. The ones who had a mentor, an adult mentor, looking out for them, engaged with them, are half as likely to stop going to church. So that's pretty mind-blowingly huge. Just by being involved in a young woman's life, minimally but regularly, you could be one of the mainstays for her understanding her faith and choosing to live out that faith beyond when her parents are forcing her to do it. Does that make sense? I hope so. So anyway, this peer teaching and mentoring thing is super important, whether you are an adult or not, and here's why. you know this, you already know this, but students feel way more comfortable and open when interacting with someone of approximately their own age. It's not that they stop listening to authority figures or adults, it's just that the importance of their own people, their own age group, and the same likes and dislikes are so much more important at that time. They want to be surrounded by people who they believe are like them, who get them, who are dealing with some of the same issues or have just recently dealt with the same issues. So here are the benefits. I'll tell you where this study is found too, or I'm wondering if I can put it in the link below, a link below later. But this study is cited from something I read at opencolleges.edu.au. You can also just look up the benefits of peer-to-peer teaching and mentoring and probably find some good stuff on your own. But number one, students receive more time and individual attention for teaching. Obvious, right? If you're going to have peers doing that together, then they can give each other a lot more time. Also, direct interaction between students promotes real active learning. So instead of like what I'm putting you through right now, just talking head, students would actually get to discuss concepts, and that creates actual active learning. Peer teachers, so like someone who's trying to teach something to a peer is actually learning themselves. In fact, the newest educational research tells us that the person who is talking is usually the person learning. So sorry for you who's listening. I'm actually learning right now. Peers and students are going to share similar discourse, similar experiences, and so they're going to be able to understand and lead each other in a way where probably a much older teacher wouldn't be able to. Also, teaching is financially efficient when done by peers, and the teacher or the leader would have more time to actually focus on lesson planning and stuff when the younger peer is teaching. So I hope that made sense. If not, I will draw you a little ditty on a napkin later. Okay, so there's going to probably be a lot of questions on actual how-tos, and I'm kind of getting this together myself. I forgot to mention, it's not like I'm a great expert at this. I've just started. This last semester was my first time doing this, and it's been super successful. Maybe not in a measurement that everyone would think, but I'll explain some of that in a little bit. So what does this peer-to-peer stuff look like? Is it like calling a bunch of teenagers and having them come into a room and go wild? No, that wouldn't work. But I do fully believe that a 16 or 17-year-old can easily lead a peer group, especially if you run it like a modified care group. And I don't know if you've heard of that, but basically there's one leader and at least one apprentice or two apprentices who the next cycle around will become the leaders themselves. And that becomes important when we talk about sustainability. But if there's an adult leader who does some of the planning, but two young people, teens, early 20s, who kind of carry out the activities on a weekly or bi-monthly basis, then you've got a pretty sustainable but easy to maintain structure. So this is a method where there's one leader and two apprentices, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the key is, what I'm presenting to you is that this should be as easy as possible so that as many people as possible can get involved. I do it really informally. Basically, here is my peer mentorship program. I have 2 to 3 high school girls come over to my house every Thursday after school for about an hour and a half. And we have a skills-based program where they tell me what they'd like to learn. And I form a little course on that. and then we do that for a couple of weeks until they've mastered a skill. So we've done, this is really weird, but they really liked learning about sweet potatoes, harvesting those. We learned different methods of cooking them. We just got through our sewing module, which was about 4 weeks of learning the basics of hand sewing, embroidery, and machine sewing. So that's really cool. And it's easy, and they love it because they picked it. But a lot of people don't have that much time to devote. So we'll talk about some other options here in a second. Okay, so the logistics of this. Here is the number one most important thing. Frequency is more important than duration. So it's better to have even 45 minutes every week than to try to do like a 2 or 3 hour course once a month. It's that regular involvement in another young woman's life that's really going to make the most impact. So I recommend doing this for a full school year if you can, if your time allows, if your budget allows, or a semester, or if you are just totally cramped for time but you really want to get involved, you really have a burden for young women, maybe you've got a story that you want to share, think about doing at least a 6-week program during the summer. That could fit in with a lot of people's busy schedule, especially if you're a student yourself, which I hope you are, because that would mean that you are below 22. Yeah, which is kind of the perfect age. Hey, not that if you're older, you're not perfect for somebody, but as we're looking at this peer model. So yes, you can do this through your local church, which might actually provide you some funding options. You can do this through a local church school, or you can do it like I've done it and go rogue and be a maverick and do it in your own neighborhood. I want to talk about that for just a second because that takes a lot of trust from my neighbors, but I've gotten to know them over the last year, and I just went around handing out invitations, and I met some awesome people, and those are the people who are now coming to this course, and their kids love it, and they love it, and they feel blessed by it. So it's a great personal ministry too. Don't feel like you have to wait for someone to tell you this is okay. You are a woman of God with amazing things that people need to know about. So if you have been like thinking, what can I do for God, and young women's ministry appeals to you, please do not feel like you need someone's permission. That is not how the church works. I know they probably told you that. Now there are some benefits, like I mentioned, possible budget stuff, but also insurance. You know, what happens if somebody gets hurt at your house, or one of the parents gets upset with you for something? It is nice to have the backing of the church and the safety of the insurance from the church. So just a couple of things to toss your way, put in your brain, but maybe you don't care about that, or maybe you know your neighbors pretty well and feel comfortable. So yes. Another thing to think about that I'm thinking about is doing this at the same time Pathfinders meets at my church, because that would give my older girls a chance to maybe start seeing and mentoring the younger girls. So think about that. Yeah, this could also be an after-school program through your local community. Would take some pitching to get that approved. Maybe some like a rec time option at a local church school. There's free time in the evenings, and maybe you could be one of the options for them to go visit and see and do stuff with in the evenings. There are a lot of girls who don't fit into whatever cliques are going on or sports are going on or whatever, and they are absolutely desiring something to do at that time. So, okay, budget. Budget can be a shoestring. I put aside about $5 a week for snacks and making copies. I could get away with less if I wanted to do more whiteboard work. And so it's really up to you. But here's the things that I would think about budgeting for sure, is making flyers to invite people. That's probably was my biggest expense last year. And it takes a lot of money to finally hit the right people. And I made sure that mine were high quality, glossy postcard stocks so that I looked legit. I don't want to be out there being like, come to my creepy, nasty, roach infested girls program. So yeah, spend some time on flyers, either make them yourself or have somebody do them. Snacks, if you want to do that, and then curriculum materials. Okay, so just want to tell you briefly the time that I put into this every week. Of course, there's some prep time, which usually takes about an hour, either for me to figure out what skill I'm going to be teaching and make sure I got it down, or to call and arrange somebody to come and talk to the girls. But so I do about an hour of that, and then I try to keep it under an hour and a half. So at 4:15, I've gone and picked up the girls. I pick up the girls. You don't have to do that. And they come to my house. We have a snack. We have a devotional thought and prayer at 4:30. And then I launch into the curriculum, whatever it is for that week. By 5:15, we do something called peer week critique. And so one of the girls will say something that happened to her, one of her friends during the week. And the other girl is an observer. And so she asks questions and she tries to figure out, you know, is this the best case scenario? What could have been better? What could have been worse? Those are all the questions we handle. It's not big and intense or anything. And then they switch. The other girl tells a story from the week that either disturbed her, excited her, or whatever. And they just kind of go back and forth. This would be way cooler in a bigger group, but you know, I'm working with what I have. And I did want to take some time and mention that. As I said, I only have 2 to 3 girls meeting with me in my home weekly, but they are loving it and it is impacting their lives. Ooh, I think you probably just heard my phone. But these girls have really opened up in the last week, been able to share about stuff that goes on in school, stuff that concerns them, why they hate school, why they like it. And so I'm getting to be that trusted friend and confidant after a semester of work. I really feel like they're starting to open up. And so that the reason I mention that is because it is a thing where the longer you go and the closer you get, the more results you see. So that's why I advocate frequency over, you know, the occasional lengthy program. I'm not trying to spit info at them, trying to have relationships with them. Okay, so let's talk about choosing your curriculum. I told you how I do it. It's kind of by the seat of my pants. Whatever they like, I look it up and do it because I want them to be excited, and I've never done this before, so I really wanted to test out some ideas. But for you to make it easy, if you don't have as much time, number one, easiest thing to do would be a book-based curriculum. So you could run it like a book club where you pick out a book or you pick it out together after you check it out to make sure the content's appropriate. And then you go through it together. One I really love for this, it's totally made for this kind of thing, is the Success Principles for Teens. Now there's a Success Principles by Jack Canfield, which is one of my favorite books, and then a young man kind of revised it, revamped it for teens, and it teaches awesome life skills that you can go through one a week, you know, and have a little bit of reading and then a little bit of discussion and just a lot of talk. So that would be a great one to do. I also like books by Leslie Ludy. She has something called Authentic Beauty, which I think would rock for slightly older girls, maybe 15, maybe 14, I don't know. But love that book. Girls I've read it with loved it. So I have other recommendations. I don't want to throw them all at you, but if you want to know, you can send me an email. Okay, the other thing which I'm doing is a skills-based curriculum where either you could teach it or you could obviously talk to ladies in your church or in your community, have them come in and teach skills that every girl needs to know. I would highly recommend car care. I would highly recommend nutrition, Girls love generally anything to do with skincare or beauty. Those are interesting. Nutrition, career readiness, all sorts of stuff that you already know and are awesome at, but they're probably not getting it home. Not because their parents don't care, but because their parents are working so hard. And you can just be an extra hub on that extra spoke on that hub, holding all these things together. So another option would be for you to facilitate pre-existing courses. What do I mean by that? Well, you guys already know that I have a course on udemy.com that has this Rock Your Life program. Obviously, that's one option, not to toot my own horn. Yeah, to toot my own horn. But that's just one of many options. You can get on udemy.com and look at all sorts of different courses. There are a few just for teens. Financial literacy stuff is out there. So there are so many curriculum options. And I just want to say this, if you don't hear anything the whole rest of this webinar, as we're wrapping up here, if you don't hear anything else, hear this. Honestly, the curriculum doesn't matter. I know that's like mind-blowing. We have to teach them things. We do have to teach them things, but what's more important, more than any skill they learn, which is rad, is to see and meet other people who have character, to see you in your leadership position, how you interact with them, how you lead. These are honestly the most important things. And so even if you got together and blew bubbles and ate Cheerios and talked about unicorns, it would be helpful, because eventually they would know, like, and trust you, and they would come to you asking questions about real life stuff. So that's the number one thing I wanted to say tonight is get started with this, no matter how dumb it seems to you or how ill prepared you feel. This is absolutely something that needs to happen, and it needs to happen outside church pretty darn quick. So get something started, and if you find stuff that works, please let me know. If you find stuff that your kids love, please let me know. I'll do the same for you. I'm always posting stuff on my Facebook page or in the blog. I think that there's tons of stuff we can figure out together. And this webinar was not meant to be like me trying to be super awesome at stuff, but me saying, let's go forward with this together and start being the one girl in these girls' lives who are taking them by the hand, and instead of stepping over on them, that we're actually pulling them up to the next level. I know you want to do that. That's why you're watching this. So I want to finish up with how to sustain this program, because I think, and I don't know who's watching this obviously, but I'm a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, and something that I think we do terribly in our church is make disciples. And I know that's, man, sorry church leaders who are watching this. It's not just my own Conway Seventh-day Adventist church. It's a lot of churches that I've been a part of. We do the dunk and ditch method, where we, are happy to baptize people, but we're not great at meeting regularly and growing where they need to grow. And so this has to be sustainable. This has to be something that excites the next generation of girls enough that they'll do the same thing. And so look at the simple sustainability structure found. Look at Acts 2:46 and 47. I'm not going to go into that, but we need to bring people in and help them study and figure, and so that they will go and do the same for the next group of girls. But here's the structure. It's really easy. I advocate for one leader, and then at least one, but possibly two apprentices. And the apprentices will do lots of hands-on stuff the day or night you meet. You could even say that a group of three, one leader and two girls learning, would be enough. It'd be nice if your group was a little bit bigger. But if you even had you and two girls coming to learn from you, next go round, they could probably teach, and you could probably just be there in case they have questions or assist. So that's the structure I like. One leader, one or two apprentices, and then everybody else has some kind of little role so that they can be involved and take ownership. This could be a cook who helps prepare the snacks. That can change every week. Somebody who keeps the time to make sure you guys stay on schedule. Maybe a photographer, someone who takes pictures so that you can have memories of the group and the different things. All sorts of options. I can send you some of my, what are they called? What are they called? Job descriptions. That's the word I was looking for. So you can get these people and get them involved, and then they will be prepared to lead the same group in their home or at their school or at their church in the next to a year. That would be the goal. So it's 6:28. I didn't want this to go longer than a half an hour. I know you guys are busy and have tons of things to do, but I just want to check here and see if there are any questions and answers. And you can also, okay, no questions and answers. You can also send me an email real quick to Amy, AMIE, at greaterthanrubies.org, or you can put a question on the Facebook page wall, whatever you want to do, and just let me know what you're thinking. If you're doing this already in your church, how that's going. If you've got any brilliant ideas, let's make this a community where we can start sharing ideas of how to, like, I know we need help ourselves. We need mentors ourselves, but let's not keep that. I can't talk today. Let's not let that stop us from being mentors to other people, because obviously you have a story. It's probably really awesome. And I know that some young ladies would benefit from hearing what you've been doing. So, okay, so I'm wondering if it's because you can't find the question and answer, or because you don't actually have any questions or answers. Any comments? I'm going to run to my Facebook page just to make sure you guys aren't commenting there. And that's Greater Than Rubies, by the way. If you haven't added me, please do. Or like me, I guess I should say. Sorry, I'm super slow. My internet's going round and round. Okay, I don't see any comments from you. I guess this is it. I'll miss you. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now, and also want to know, hey, what should we talk about for our next webinar? You've got two options. Oh, hey, Sarah, how are you? You're inspiring to me too, and I need to hear your story, girl. We need to talk. Okay, so the next webinar someone suggested is how to creep-proof your love life. If you think that sounds interesting, or if you know girls who would think that was interesting, send me a holler, give me a thumbs up. If you've got another idea that we should cover, let me know. I'll work on getting some experts in. So that's it for now. I love you, and good night.